Lounging, son.
Welcome to the Comic Lounge podcast. Today we're going to be interviewing Elsa Charretier, the artist on the hit book November from Image Comics, which just saw Volume 2 drop last week. Thank you for taking time today to do this interview with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
So, first question I wanted to ask is, when did you first decide to become an artist?
So I first decided to become an artist later than I would have wanted, I guess. I discovered comics around 25 years old. So that's later than most artists. And I discovered comics and decided I wanted to become an artist right away, basically. Before that, I was working in the entertainment industry. I wanted to be an actress.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, well, not so much. I really fast it became obvious that it really wasn't for me at all. The craft itself, but also the community, if you can speak of a community. But I tried for too long. I hanged in there and tried to make it work for about 6 years. But then when I just realized that it wasn't for me at all, I quit. And I kind of didn't do anything for about a year because I was kind of, lost and didn't, my entire life and had been planned to work in movies. And so when that fell apart, I was kind of lost in what am I going to do with my life now? I knew I wanted to be an artist, but that's pretty vague. I wanted to work in arts, but that's not a plan. And
Yeah.
so luckily I discovered comics, and my partner at the time, oh, who's still my partner right now, but he discovered comics at the time and he introduced me to comics, and we started, the whole process together.
So, you say you discovered comics at a later age. What were those first comics that you read that kind of made you want to go this route into comic
Okay,
books?
so I first read, I can't remember exactly what it was, but maybe it was Batman or something like that. And I remember not being super fond of the superhero genre. I've learned to open my mind a little bit since then. But I thought the pictures were pretty, but I didn't connect with it. But then I read Watchmen, and that's when I realized that comics could be more than superheroes. Not that superheroes, are not good or anything, but I guess I felt more of a connection with work that is maybe a bit more indie. So that's when it clicked. So oh, comics doesn't necessarily mean, superheroes. It could be other stuff. Made me realize what working in comics could be. Although I actually started working on superheroes books, and I enjoyed it a lot. But ultimately, now I'm working almost exclusively in creator owned because I don't know, it's just for me it aligns more with what I like to draw. But yeah, so Watchmen was a big revelation.
Your art style is very distinct, and I think it kind of has an influence of Darwin Cook and mixed with Tim Sale. Like that's kind of like what I see. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but who are some of your artistic influences?
Well, you kind of nailed it. I mean, obviously, those two artists were and still are very important to me. And so I grew up watching Batman the animated series because we had that in France on TV, the Sunday cartoons. So I grew up watching that, and I guess it kind of influenced my taste in terms of shapes and cartoony stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you look at the animated series, it's very cartoony, but it has that sort of gritty noir that is very unique. And most of my influences kind of revolve around that. I adore Risso's work. It's darker, definitely. It's maybe less cartoony, although it's cartoony in a different way, I guess. But Darwin Cook also shares that same, characteristics. Tim Cell as well, which I was lucky enough to meet a few times, and I'm thinking of other artists that influenced me a lot, and Mazzucchelli's work too was really important to me. And actually, in November, the book that I'm doing right now at Image, it's kind of my attempt channeling Batman Year One from Mazzucchelli's.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Oh well, thank you. That was sort of the goal, if you want, and some of the landmarks or visual identity that makes the Parker books, very unique in what they are. I tried to take some of that into my work. So I guess, yeah, a lot of the things that I love revolve around those two aspects, cartoony and noir. And what's interesting is that with those two visual landmarks, I don't know if that's the right word, you realize that there's a wide variety of styles that you can accomplish. So that's something also that I love about it, is to play, to, go more cartoony for one book, a bit more noir for another, and to play within that range.
So you entered the world of comics, at least to my knowledge, with your crowdfunding book, The Infinite Loop.
Yeah.
So what was the reason behind doing it with crowdfunding? Did you shop it around to publishers and they had passed on it?
Yeah. But at that time we pitched it to French publishers because we didn't feel quite ready to make that big move to decide, okay, let's try the US market, although that was the goal. But we first tried French publishers and we got turned down by all of them. But that's actually for the better, because we decided to do it anyway and to crowdfund it. And the book, the campaign did really well. We got enough to publish the book. We got enough money left to book tickets to New York Comic Con and to actually pitch the book to publishers, American publishers. So I don't think we would be, it's pretty sure we wouldn't be where we are right now had we found a French publisher, because we would have gone the mainstream road or the less do-it-yourself road. So it was for the better that we got refusals.
I mean, that's not the only successful crowdfunding project you've done. You also did your art book through Kickstarter, which was really successful as well. Is it safe to say that you'll maybe do more projects through Kickstarter or other crowdfunding things in the future?
Oh, absolutely. So the Infinite Loop crowdfunding campaign that we did was 7 years ago. And somehow it felt much harder than the campaign we just did for the art book, which was in last October, November. Mm-hmm. And so the first one was so hard that it took us about 6 or 7 years to finally decide, okay, let's get back at it and let's crowdfund a new book. But the last campaign, I don't know if, we got older, we know our jobs better. It felt, much easier. So, I mean, why not decide to maybe make a little less? And some campaigns work super well. But, and making sure that you're 100% independent and you can retain your IP, your characters are still yours. So it's a model that we've been exploring, and we definitely want to keep building projects there. And we made that decision before the pandemic, and the pandemic has changed the comic book landscape quite a lot. And so more and more creators are going Kickstarter way. We are definitely among those.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm noticing a lot of creators going that route too. How important do you think, in your opinion, crowdfunding is to the comics industry, especially during these unique times.
But it's a chance to, I think it's super important to tap into that well of fans and readers that follow your work, but sometimes will miss pre-orders. It happens because there are so many books coming out, and let's face it, the diamond process of pre-ordering is a mess. So doing a crowdfunding is a chance to have your community rally around your project, and then they tend to be more generous. They will back the higher tiers, which means more money for the project than just, having them buy the book. So I think it's a fantastic way to create and to strengthen your fan base.
I mean, I completely agree. I personally, once I started realizing that there was a lot of comic book projects being put out there, I started backing stuff, and I didn't know some of, creators that I was already following were doing stuff like that. Like Jim Rugg just he put out his Blacklight comic on there. I mean, I think that thing got crowdfunded in the first day too, which is pretty cool. And I think it's cool to see, like you said, like the community of fans rallying around projects and the support, because you don't see that in a comic book store. I even work at a comic book store part-time, and it's just, you don't see that really, you talk to people for a few minutes, but that's about as far as it goes, but with these Kickstarters, it is cool for you to follow along and like, oh, I wonder if they met their goal yet, or wow, I can't believe they're reaching so far past.
The idea that you're participating in something big, and you're actually, although it's, when you pre-order a book, some of the money go to the creators, but when you're backing a project, you feel like you're seeing exactly where your money is going, and that's important to people. And also, I wanted to add something about that, is that it looks like Image is allowing creators to kickstart their project, even though Image is putting the book out at a later date. And that's something I don't think they agreed to before, because of probably being afraid of losing sales and losing maybe momentum. And but I think that's changing now, and it's absolutely, it's gonna change the creator-owned markets a lot, because creators get to have a real advance, some money before the book gets into pre-orders, and having to wait for royalties for months and months and months. You can pay some part of the creative team with a Kickstarter, and then having the book out, and that's great. It's two, sources of revenue, and an extra one that we didn't have before.
Yeah, because usually from the time you finish a project, it can take up to like a year, right? From the time you finish the project till the time you actually start seeing royalties?
It depends. It depends on how long in advance you did you actually created the book. But Image now is asking for 3 full issues done before having the book available for pre-orders. So that's a lot of time. So that's 3 months plus 3 months of pre-orders. That's when the book comes out. So you're already at 6 months after having actually, done the whole work. And then you have to wait for another 3 months for the first royalties to kick in. Most of the time, that just covers expenses and stuff. And if you're lucky, you'll get some more money when the trade comes out. But that's at least another 3 to 6 months. So yeah, like you said, it can be a year. I finished November volume 1. I can't remember exactly, but it's been more than a year. And the first royalty that came in reimbursed my advance, the colorist's advance, the letterer's advance. But that's it. We didn't make more money out of it. So we're waiting for that next royalty payment to kick in. But with the pandemic, no one knows how sales have been altered. So it's kind of like, well, we'll see. Yeah. So having that initial Kickstarter is a great way for the artist to be able to, and also the writer, but the artist, full-time on a book. Writer can, always work on other projects. So for the artist to be able to live of their art, and that's game-changing.
I mean, I feel like it would open the door for artists to be able to do more projects if they're not sitting around having to wait for money, because I know that being an artist can be. I mean, my wife's an artist, so I know that like you can create product, but like it doesn't mean you're necessarily getting the money right away for all your hard work. So I try to support as many Kickstarters as I can.
But that's great because it makes a big difference in creators' life. And I think also that's healthy for comics as a medium, because the more artists feel, are free, financially free to do creator owned, it creates a balance. Because right now publishers that pay paid rates have that huge advantage of saying, oh, but we can pay you right now or at completion of the book. And so that creates a pool for artists who say, oh, maybe I would like to work on my own books, but I can't because I don't have savings to live off for 6 months. So those Kickstarters would allow kind of a diversity of the medium. I don't know if I'm expressing myself right, but the fact that artists could have the option of doing both and making a living in both is healthy.
Yeah, I think that's super important because I mean I read my Marvel and DC, but I think my weekly pulls are mainly creator-owned stuff, and it would be nice to be able to see more of that. And I feel if there's less of a risk because like you said, if they can get money through Kickstarter stuff like that, then they're more willing to go that route instead of having to quote unquote like settle for corporate characters.
Yeah, you said what I wanted to say, but much more clearer. That's what I was going for. And that's great for rates too, because
Yeah,
then as an artist, you have leverage. When there's no leverage, the
exactly.
publishers can basically do what they want.
All right, well let's talk about November. I love the book. I picked up volume 1 right when it came out. Just finished volume 2 the other day. I was wondering how the project came together. Were you approached by Matt, or did you guys come up with this idea together? How did that come about?
First of all, did you like volume 2?
I loved it. Oh, I didn't tell you I liked it. Yeah, I loved volume
You,
2.
you could absolutely tell me that you didn't like it. I wouldn't be offended. I'm just genuinely curious.
I loved it. I love your art style. I love noir. These type of stories are like right up my alley. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, their
Mm-hmm.
their
Yeah.
their work, that's like my favorite creative team in comics. So when the first volume of November came out, I saw it was a noir book. I'm like, I'm all over that. So I've been waiting for volume 2 to come out. So I'm
Oh
very.
yeah, we have been waiting for for it too for a while. So how did it came about? Matt and I met each other, I want to say maybe 6 years ago in Paris, right when I was starting out. We hit it off and we became friends over time. After a few years working for DC and Marvel, I realized, like I was saying earlier, that I didn't think my future was in superhero comics. And so I thought, I love Matt's work. I think he's one of the most talented writers at the moment. I'll just ask him. And so I asked him, and he said yes. So, you know, it's as simple as that.
So you said Mazzucchelli is a huge influence for the project. I definitely see that. I think there's a lot of cinematic vibes that come off of these two books so far. And I was wondering what other research material did you use for the book?
So one other reference was City of Glass, which is also one of Mazzucchelli's books, but really different from Batman Year One. In terms of research, not much actually. I just reread some of the books that I wanted to channel. Besides that, one of the main differences from my previous projects was to listen to my gut and try to be as instinctive as possible. So that's not really a reference, but that's what guided me through the creation of those books.
I know there's one more volume, and I know that probably the way that the industry has been going, maybe that's pushing it back. Have you finished volume 3, or when is that supposed to be released?
So there's actually 4 volumes.
Oh,
We
4 volumes.
wanted,
Okay.
you're not wrong. We intended to do 3 volumes at first, and realized that it would make a better story if we did it in 4 volumes. So there's 2 books left. I finished volume 3. We are wrapping it up right now, and I've just started today on volume 4. I was actually doing some layouts before we talked.
Oh, awesome. I'm so excited that there's an extra book coming out.
It's a good one. It's really a good one. I read the script this morning, not the entire script, so I don't know how it ends yet. But it's just so, I love those characters, and my heart's gonna be broken when I'm gonna be done.
I'm very excited to read the next one.
Yeah, it answers a lot of questions, as volume 2 and 3 answer a lot of questions, asks other new questions, but we're kind of starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I love how those books are structured with the character chapters, and we get each character's side of the story. And I think it's super interesting from an artistic point of view to kind of translate someone's vision, and then having the same scene view through someone else's eyes. That's really interesting for me.
Are there any other projects you have in the works besides working on book 4?
So yes, another one after that. We're still in the developing stages right now, but creator owned, that's for sure. And then Matt and I will probably do another book together after that one.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I kind of have my future mapped out for the next, I want to say 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that I love is that when you're working in creator-owned comics, you can do what the hell you want, decide that you want to, and if I want to, stop working for a little while and do something else, focus on maybe illustration work, I don't know. I know I'll be able to come back to comics whenever I want if I find the right projects. There's this kind of freedom that you get when you're working in creator-owned comics. It's also a lot more risky because you never know how good or not good a book is gonna do. But I'm fine with that.
And I wanted to ask a little bit about the process of your art. With so many artists working digitally, I was wondering what's your preference? Do you do a bit of both, or do you prefer digital over traditional?
I do a bit of both, with the goal ultimately to get back to full paper. So right now I'm doing my layouts on paper. I pencil on the computer because I'm better. I'm just better. And then I print out my pencils in blue inks, and I ink on paper over them. But I've been trying more and more to pencil on paper as well. But I know I'm not quite there yet. It'll take a little while, but I'm hoping this year might be the time that I get away from the computer altogether.
And are there any other mediums that you dabble in besides illustration and stuff? Do you do any painting or stuff like that?
No. Oh, I wish. I don't know how to paint. One of my long future goal is to actually learn how to paint. But I'm thinking of other stuff I do. I've been getting to lettering.
Oh,
Because
cool.
I would like to on November. Kurt's hand lettering is so incredibly beautiful that I decided that I must learn how to do that, in case I can't pay a letterer. So I've been working on that, and once in a while I'll bust out the watercolor palette, and then I'll work on it for a couple hours. I'll get frustrated, and I'll throw it back into my desk, and that's about how comfortable I am with paint.
So do you think you'll ever in the future try to get to the point where maybe you color your work as well?
Ideally, once again, to, save on costs. And I love working with a colorist, and obviously Matt Hollingsworth, who is coloring November, is an incredible colorist. But sometimes on certain books, you just can't pay a colorist because quality is expensive, and it should be. Sometimes there's just no money for it. So sometime in the future, I would love to learn how to color. I don't know if it'll happen, but that would, give me that extra freedom to choose books not based on how much money we can make.
Who are some creators or books that you're following right now?
So lately, I've been kind of very, very jealous of Matthias Bergara's work. He's an incredible artist. I love how fluid and loose his work is. So him. I'm also a huge fan of Naomi Frankie's work. I don't know if you know her work.
I'm not familiar.
Well, look it up because she's incredible.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Vanessa Del Rey's work is also stunning. Veronica Fish's work is incredible too. I'm thinking of other names, but there are a lot of them, but of course I can't think of any more right now. But I follow a lot of artists, and I try to, motivate myself to improve my work because of, being exposed to beautiful things. So yeah, a lot of artists' work I follow.
I noticed you named a lot of female creators, and I've definitely noticed over the past few years. I mean, I can't think how far back, but I'm noticing that there's so many more female creators that are in the spotlight and that are on big projects. How have you noticed that in your short time in the comic books industry? How much that's grown?
Of course, I mean it's grown a lot. I can't really speak for the before because I'm kind of part of that wave, I guess. But there have been women in comics forever, but less so than now. But I don't know, like it's just a kind of the medium and the industry kind of evolving with its time. I don't know how else to phrase it. If we didn't have that diversity, I mean, it would be kind of, it's 2020, about time.
Yeah, I think the industry would be very boring if there wasn't diversity amongst creators, instead of just the same thing that's always been going on. I mean, it's kind of like what's going on with the protests. I don't know if there's protests where you are. I mean, it is crazy to me how stuck in old mentalities that people still are nowadays, and it's very prevalent with the protests that have been going on throughout at least the U.S.
Definitely. I mean, some part of the population is ready to evolve, has evolved.
Yeah.
And others are not so willing, and the ones that are not willing are the ones that are profiting from how things are right now. But it's incredible. It's very hopeful, those protests. It's kind of easy to fall into that, oh my god, the world is so scary right now. But I try not to see it that way. It's incredible. This movement is a very long time coming.
I agree.
That's the only way that things can change. It's great that it's after 2 weeks it's still going strong, and things are starting to to change. And some cities are saying, okay, we need to do something. We need to make big changes or take steps towards big changes. So I think it's an incredibly hopeful time.
Yeah, I agree. These changes have been long overdue, and it is pretty crazy that these protests have still continued on, because sometimes they go and then they end pretty quick, but they have been going strong, and it is kind of amazing to see so many people trying to invoke change when this should have been done years ago, but I mean, better late than never. And lastly, I just wanted to ask you if you could just share where people can find your work on social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram. and I post most of my stuff there. I post commissions, work in progress, and I also have the link to my store on there with the the link in bio and the pinned tweets, because my art book is out after being in pre-order through Kickstarter. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, and thank you again for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Lounging, son.